good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Mirth van der Gaast. I'm a project coordinator at NABC, and one of the main project focal points for the Match project in the Netherlands. Thank you all for joining our webinar on the Match project, focusing on the legal pathways available for hiring talent from Nigeria and Senegal. During this session, we also want to inform you of the importance of looking on some of the long-term needs that you as a company might have to invest in human capital, and also to support you in your constant search for new talent. And the search for new talent is something that will become more and more borderless, and allowing Dutch companies also to tap in talent pools that were, let's say, unable to access in the past, and also allowing you to access new markets as well. And one of the main benefits of building or maintaining your talent pipeline now is that it can help you reduce some of the time to hire and enable a proactive hiring approach in a post-COVID area. So during today's session, we will mainly be focusing on some of the legal aspects allowing for talent mobility to take place. As you might know, it is quite a challenging aspect to go through all the steps. So we will be focusing on this session on this topic. So I would like to start this session by presenting the Match project to you. Maya, the floor is all yours. I will stop the screen sharing.
Thanks for that introduction, and good afternoon to everybody joining us. Some of you may have joined us at our previous webinar. And as Mirth mentioned, these webinars are recorded. So if you missed our last webinar, do tune into that. You'll find it on our website. So welcome back to those who are joining us for the second time. I am introducing the Match project. A lot of this will be repetition to you, but do stay tuned, because we have some very interesting discussions on this all-female panel of experts who will cover some quite technical details about legal pathways to the Netherlands. So I am the project focal point from IOM in the Netherlands, sitting in very sunny The Hague. And I have about 10 minutes just to outline the project before we continue on. And of course, as Mirta said, you can use the chat function to flag anything that was unclear to you, and we'll come back to you at the end. So the basics of the Match project, you've already sort of heard it in a nutshell from Mirta, but this is a circular migration project, and is demand driven by employers situated in Belgium, Italy, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. And this webinar will focus on the Netherlands, obviously. Circular migration of young candidates, particularly those who have skills in the ICT sector, not only skills in the ICT sector, which is already a very broad set of professions, but we're also expanding that to other sectors as well. And they are originating from Nigeria and Senegal to come for a work placement to one of these 4 countries for a duration of up to 2 years. You would have noticed the EC flag in the corner of my slide. That's because this project is funded by the European Commission, specifically the AMEF fund. And we are funded for a duration of 36 months, equates to 3 years. And we launched in January this year. We've come off to a bit of a bumpy start, obviously, because of COVID-19. This is really requiring us to be quite creative with our approach. However, as Mirta also indicated, the need for labor is not quelled by COVID-19. If anything, the need for labor in the ICT sector has actually increased since 2018. As you may have read in the recent UWV report on labor shortages and vacancies that are difficult to fill in the Netherlands, that these professions continue to suffer from a labor shortage in the Netherlands. So we are using this time where we cannot facilitate the movement of individuals from Senegal and Nigeria. We're using this time to engage heavily with employers to better understand the needs of employers, their concerns, and to plan so that matches can be made and people can travel for work placements as soon as national regulations allow us to do so. You'll also see our list of partners here, and you've met Meerte from NABC, who is our partner in the Netherlands, but there are partners in each of the 4 countries. And we work closely with the IOM focal points in the 6 countries that are participating in this project. So the goals of the MATCH project, as I've said, it is a circular mobility scheme. We work within existing legal frameworks. We are not looking to introduce new legal frameworks. And then Helene will outline a bit further what that means in the Netherlands. We are really emphasizing knowledge transfer and development, and this is at individual level, the company level, and national level. So we do that through the upskilling of knowledge, of skills, of competencies in young graduates from Nigeria and Senegal through work placements. They will also conduct development projects and additional training while they are in Europe. But also, these candidates bring a huge amount of skills, also soft skills and intercultural expertise that can be beneficial to companies in Europe. So we hope to bring greater awareness to employers in the Netherlands, to the capacities, to the potential of graduates in Nigeria and Senegal, which may not be the first place that Dutch employers think to look for new talent. And I think a key word on this slide is indeed sustainable. We're looking to do this in a way that can be scaled, can be sustained. This is a 3-year project. And we are working with existing labor shortages, existing legal pathways, and existing talent. So we hope to utilize these available resources and scale them and see it grow in a way that can be sustained into the future. I include this slide because I think it's a really positive endorsement from the European Commission. As I said, this is our donor, but regardless, in 2020, in February this year, Ursula von der Leyen released the EU-Africa Partnership Strategy. And they outlined 5 key areas that the European Commission would like to see greater partnership with the continent of Africa. And it's in the belief, a very true belief, that Europe cannot develop without Africa also developing, and vice versa. So I've included the link here because it really is an interesting strategy. I think that within the 5 thematic areas that this roadmap outlines, the 2, if you see the 5 squares, green squares on my slide, the 2 at the bottom, I think, apply the most to us, although all 5 of them are incredibly relevant. But it's very encouraging to see that Europe and Africa are going to work together on growing and strengthening existing partnerships for digital transformation, and also quite critically, mobility and migration. So it's this recognition that greater development can take place in both continents through migration and through mobility. And that really speaks to us within the MATCH project. So this is a fantastic endorsement for the MATCH project, for recruitment from Africa, and for further development through existing legal pathways. We've got some animated slides. Let me just bring these all up. So how does the MATCH project work? As I've said, at this stage, we are conducting a lot of exchange and outreach with employers in the Netherlands. We are still at step 1. This has required us to be quite reactive in terms of COVID-19, placing some challenges on us. So we are really engaging with employers to ensure that the MATCH project best serves the interests and the needs of employers. So it has required us to adjust our program slightly, but we're there to serve the employer. This is a demand-driven project, so we're using this time really to understand how we can use this time to work with employers and facilitate matches in advance of the international borders, allowing us to facilitate movement. We will be publishing vacancies in Senegal and Nigeria. This is through the organization Aldelia, which is in step 2. For those people who may be job seekers in our audience today, I would like to direct you to Aldelia, to Google them. So we will be working with different partners who will help us to identify this talent in Nigeria and in Senegal. Step 3 indicates screening and matching of those talents based on the vacancies that the Dutch employers have shared with us. And we have a special consideration to ensure that we have female participation in this project. It's very important to strive for a gender balance. Through the screening and matching project, which is done by the steering committee, 5 candidates for each position will be shortlisted and shared with the Dutch employer. And then with the steering committee, there will be a round of secondary recruitment through interviews, through tests, through competency exams, so that an individual can be selected by the employer. And lastly, IOM and NABC obviously ensure logistical preparation. And we are also conducting pre-departure training, cultural training to the candidates in Senegal and in Nigeria, but also to the host employers who may not be familiar with the cultures of Nigeria and Senegal, or may not be so familiar with working with people outside of the Netherlands. So this is the steps that take place before the individual arrives to the Netherlands. So during the work placement, as I've said, lasts up to 2 years. So this is when we're actually able to bring individuals to the Netherlands. IOM and NABC will be providing on-call support to both the candidate, but also to the host employer and their colleagues in the office. And this is on an ad hoc basis. We are always there to support. We'll be facilitating networking and information exchange. There may be employers in the Netherlands participating in match who would like to know what the experience in Belgium, Luxembourg, and Italy is like. So there'll be a lot of discussion. Similarly, so for candidates, allowing them to meet, to exchange their experiences during their work placement and afterwards. We'll encourage our candidates to engage with the local diaspora groups. So Nigerian and the Senegalese diaspora who live in the Netherlands, not only for social aspects, but also for the element of development, to identify how candidates during their work placement can contribute to development in their home country. They'll be conducting, in addition to their work placement, with a lot of on-the-job training, there'll be additional elements of training and development opportunities for the candidate during their time in the Netherlands. And lastly, we'll be working to ensure that there's a so-called soft landing for candidates when they return to Senegal and Nigeria. So we'll be working with training institutions and employers to ensure that there is a smooth integration from the Netherlands when they return to their home country. So what does this mean for the interested employers in the audience and those who we speak to? We would like to encourage you to reach out to Mirta and myself to have an initial discussion about your company's needs and interests. I think this is particularly relevant during the current uncertainty that we're really not sure of the regulations in the next few weeks. So it's good to have an understanding of where we stand now and where you see yourself in the next 6 months to 2 years, so that we can ensure that we can tailor the activities of the project to meet your needs. Once you share your vacancies with us and your skill profiles with us, we can develop an individualized plan for your company. And then we can use the services of Aldelia to identify potential candidate pools in Nigeria and in Senegal. Ultimately, we'll be able to provide you with a short list of highly selected, highly skilled candidates before the further recruitment steps takes place. So this is my last slide. I think I've maybe beat my personal record of 10 minutes. I would like to encourage you to peruse our website. I've included the link there. You'll also find my email address, but there's much more information available online. And this webinar will be made available as well on our website. Yes, I encourage you to use the question and answers. I'll stick around for this entire webinar to answer your questions. So please do let us know if anything is unclear. And we look forward to hearing from you about your interest in participating in the project. So thank you very much. And over to you, Mirta.
Yes, so thank you, Maya, for the introduction on Match. I think it was very good that you highlighted that NABC and IOM the Netherlands are not responsible for the pre-selection of the candidates, but that we will depend for this on the local offices in Nigeria and Senegal of IOM, the local recruitment agencies, and of course Algeria, who plays a very crucial role within this project. I would now like to turn to our first guest speaker of our webinar today, focusing on the main theme of this webinar, which is the legal pathways available for hiring talent from Nigeria and Senegal. So Helene, I will now give the floor to you. I will stop the screen sharing and then you can take over.
Thank you very much, Meerte and Maya, for the interesting information that you have already provided to us. I'm just going to put on my start because I understand that I have 10 minutes. So, well, my name is Helen Jonker and I am the partner and immigration lawyer for Migrantic. And I do not have to introduce myself anymore because I had a great introduction from you both. So what I will be discussing today are the legal pathways for hiring talent from Nigeria and Senegal. Just a quick, yes. So there are various legal pathways, and the ones that I will be addressing are based on the labor market shortage, the highly skilled migrant, the searchee and the intercompany transfer. And if I still have sufficient time, I will also address the trainee and the apprentice for work purposes. But if there will not be sufficient time, I will skip to the COVID-19 measures, which we are facing now and which can be, well, what we can do with the COVID-19 measures in order to make sure that it is possible to hire the young talents in Nigeria and Senegal. So let me start first of all with the first labor market shortage work authorization procedure. It actually facilitates work authorization. Why? That is that if the employer is able to prove that he or she has been recruiting for at least 3 months and has not been able to find priority enjoying workers in the EU, so that there's no suitable candidate. Now, one of the priority enjoying worker is, of course, the EU national. So if the employer can prove that they cannot find a suitable candidate, then it is possible to file the work permit application. I must say that this is a very long and cumbersome procedure. Extensive documentation needs to be provided in order to prove that sufficient efforts have been made. And it is not only sufficient efforts, even if we look, because what the IND, the Immigration and Naturalisation Office, what they will do is they will request an advice from the Dutch Public Employment Service, the so-called UWV. And what the UWV also does is to look in their database to see whether there are workers that could be able to fulfill this, to be able to fulfill the function. So it is a lengthy procedure and the chances of approval are minimal, I must say. So what I do advise my clients, if there are other procedures available, let us look at the specific conditions that need to be fulfilled in order to be able to see whether we can have a look at the other types of work authorization. Now, one of these work authorization, other one, is the familiar, I hope it's familiar to you, the highly skilled migrant procedure. Now, the highly skilled migrant is an expedited procedure, and the main condition is that the company or the Dutch employer is registered, well, it needs to be registered in the Dutch Chamber of Commerce, but it is also important that the company can prove, well, the IND assesses the solvency and the continuity and the reliability of the company. Now, documentation will need to be provided in order to, documentation needs to be provided in order to prove this solvency and continuity, but it is based on how long the company has been registered and how long actual working activities have been taken place. So if the distinction is made with the years that the company is registered or working activities have been taking place. So the first distinction is it the registration shorter than 1.5 years, or is it between 1.5 years and 3 years, or is it 3 years or more? Now this documentation will be, in most cases, and especially for a registration up to 3 years, advice will be requested from RVO, and that's the so-called Netherlands-Dutch enterprise. And they will advise the IND based on a point-based system. And this is actually mentioned in the regulation, how many points you receive for specific conditions. And once the RVO has advised the IND will provide will give a decision, and the company will be registered as a sponsor. Now, once the company is registered as a sponsor, it is possible to apply for the highly skilled migrant procedure. Now, the highly skilled, who is a highly skilled migrant? It is, of course, a young talent. And it is based, well, on age. So you need to receive a specific salary. So if you're younger than 30, or if you're 30 years or older. And I have mentioned the different salaries on the slide here. You can see the salary levels that need to be fulfilled. So once again, it is an expedited procedure. Now, if the talent will be coming for a period longer than 4 months, he or she must be on a local contract, must receive a local contract, a Dutch contract. If it's going to be shorter than 4 months, so up to 3 months, it's an expedited procedure that does not go through the IND. It is a request that is sent to the UWV. But no local contract needs to be in place. So that is the distinction that the employer must make. Well, do we want to have the young talent here for 4 months or more, or up to a period of 3 months? Now, I have mentioned the search year. Why have I mentioned the search year? Because it could be of interest to the employer taking a place in the match project. So a search year is possible to apply for a young talent who in the past 3 years has received a Dutch bachelor's degree or has graduated from a designated international institution ranked in the top 200 rankings. Now I have provided the links here, the university rankings. Unfortunately, the universities in Nigeria and Senegal are not ranked in the top 200. But if you do have a young talent that has another university degree, it is certainly worthwhile to have a look whether the graduate falls within the top 200, because then it is possible for this individual talent to apply for a search year. Now, the search year, what is the search year? It's actually a year that the young talent can search for a job. So if the employer is willing to employ the talent can apply for a search year, which will be, the work authorization will be granted for 1 year. And during this year, the talent may work for the employer and needs to receive a salary that is at least the minimum wage. So it's the Dutch minimum wage. So it is not as high as the knowledge migrant, the highly skilled migrant salary level, which you see on this slide. So it is the minimum wage that the talent needs to receive. Now, after the work authorization for 1 year, the talent can change the restriction of this search year to, for example, a knowledge migrant. So I will go back to this slide again, and you will see the highly skilled migrant, and then you will see the search year whereby you see that it is a much lower salary and it is not based on age. So the search year can be changed to the restriction highly skilled migrant, and the employer needs to pay a salary of 2,423 euros. It's a gross amount. The 8% holiday allowance is not included, so please do keep that in mind. So, and then we have the intercompany transfer procedure. I'm just having a quick look to see how the time is going. Well, that's going quite quickly. So the intercompany transfer procedure, it's an expat contract, meaning that the talent needs to remain on the employment contract with the company in, for example, Nigeria or Senegal, needs to have been employed for at least 3 months. And the highly skilled migrant salary levels are applicable, so it is a higher salary level. And the work authorization will be granted for a maximum of 3 years. Now, the interesting part of this work authorization is that if we apply, for example, from the Netherlands, it needs to be in one of the member states of the European Union, but because we are concentrating on the Netherlands, I will do so. So the work authorization will be granted in the Netherlands, and the young talent will be allowed to transfer within the group of companies to another EU member state and work there. So we are looking at a work authorization for the Netherlands, allowing the young talent to work, for example, within the 3-year period, for example, 1 year in Belgium or in Italy or in Luxembourg. So one of the countries that are also taking part in the match project. Administrative handlings do need to take place in that European country. It depends on how long the talent will be working there, but it is certainly interesting because the main work authorization is granted in one country, allowing the young talent to work in the other countries. Now, considering the time, I'm going to have to skip the trainee possibilities, and I will now transfer to the COVID-19 measures that have been taken, and how can we work with these COVID-19 measures. As we all know, the Schengen borders are closed until June 16th, and there are rumors that they might be extended until at least the summer. So we should keep that in mind, that it's going to be extremely difficult for the coming period to travel to the Netherlands if the Schengen borders are closed. But the IND is not sitting still. It is still possible to file the applications. The IND is still taking decisions and approvals. And from my side, I am noticing that they are still sticking to the time period that the official time period that they need to take the decision. So it's not that you have to wait an extremely long time, because once again the IND is continuing with the application and approvals, and if the approval is there, the approval will stand and be extended until travel is possible. So my advice to my clients is continue, file the applications now. It is possible to work remote from Nigeria or Senegal, and once a possibility is there for the young talent to travel to the Netherlands, then he or she can travel without having to wait for another for a decision from the IND. And especially if we look at the recognized sponsorship application, which certainly can take up to 6 months. My advice is file it now, and then be ready once the borders are opened. Now, I would like to, and you will see my referral, the link on this page to the IND website, where they have fantastic detailed information on the measures that are being taken, on the, for example, the consulates, when are they opening, when are they closed, what to do if you have a residence permit and you're stuck in one of the countries outside the EU. So please do have a look at that website, because it provides you all the answers to your questions, most probably. I would have liked to say much more, but I'm going to stop now, and I look forward to any questions that might be there. And I'm going to give the floor back to Meerte, I believe.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Helene. It's very insightful to hear that there are various options available for hiring talent from Nigeria and Senegal, and you did an amazing job covering that in the very limited time we've had today. And I would now like to give the floor to our next speaker, Marieke van Meegen from the IND. Marieke, just indicates when you want me to go to the next slide, because I will be controlling. So yes, the floor is now all yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, you have introduced me quite well at the start of the webinar, but I would like to add a little bit more. I would like to add the fact that I am part of the team businesses of the IND, and which I will explain a little bit more later in the presentation. I wanted to start with some figures and some facts about labor migrants coming to the Netherlands. And well, as you can see here, 85% of all the migrants coming to the Netherlands for work are coming for the purpose of knowledge and talent, of which the highly skilled migrants are part of. As you can also see that that is a number that is increasing every year. So in 2019, we've had more than 20,000 applications that we processed. And as you can see, there is a very high approval rate on these applications, that is 94%. Of course, there are other options to come to the Netherlands for work. As you can see, you can start a startup, or you can come for other labor, as Helene Jonker already also explained. But those are much lower figures, as you can see. And what I think is interesting to see is that the approval rates are much lower as well. So for an employer, it is more interesting to find out if it is possible for them to attract employees on the knowledge and talent procedures, because it can be more successful. Next slide, please. Meerte? Yes, thank you. Then I've checked the figures about Nigerian and Senegalese highly skilled migrants, and over the past 3 years. And as you can see, compared to the total amount of highly skilled migrants that come to the Netherlands, these numbers are very low. So I think there is a lot that can be done in order to attract and improve the policies to Nigerian and Senegalese citizens to come to the Netherlands, because these are very low figures. That might, of course, have a historic background. You know, it also has to do with language. The Senegalese are usually French-speaking, so why come to a country and learn Dutch, which is not easy, of course. So, and also for Nigerian citizens, there is the diaspora of Nigerian citizens in the US and the UK. So. It might be good for us in the Netherlands to promote ourselves to Nigerian and Senegalese citizens to come and work here, so that we can benefit from their skills and talent. Then about the recognized sponsors, the companies that have obtained that status over the last years. As you can see, the companies that have applied to become recognized sponsor, the numbers have increased over the past 3 years as well. And every year we're getting more and more applications. At the moment, there is a total of 7,600 recognized sponsors. There is a list of all those companies who are recognized on the IND website. So if any talent or a young person who is watching our presentation now, if you're interested in seeing what companies actually are recognized sponsor already, then you can look on the look it up on the IND website under employer. What we also do is we categorize the recognized sponsor per SBI category. That is a standard company layout of the Chamber of Commerce. These figures we haven't been registering these SBI categories all the time, but since 2014 you can see the different categories. For example, the IT sector, service activities, how many companies already have this status of recognized sponsor. And there are, of course, a lot of other categories in which young talent are working. Well, there are some benefits, of course, when you become a recognized sponsor, and that means that you have only one application form, so that we try to make it as simple as possible. Whether it is the first acceptance or the first entry of the high-skilled migrant or the young talent into the Netherlands, or the continuity of the application or the extension. There is just one application form. We have also, since 2013, we have made the procedures, the application procedures easier and faster. So any recognized sponsor who applies for the residence permit of the high-skilled migrant will get a decision from the IND within 2 weeks. And that also counts for extension of the residence permit, for example. What we've also tried to do is that it is to avoid the recognized sponsor to submit all kinds of supporting documents. The application is actually done by the IND based upon the statement of the recognized sponsor that all conditions are met by the high-skilled migrant. So that means that we are not going to check application by application whether or not all conditions are fulfilled. So the recognized sponsor is making a statement that in the case of a certain person, all requirements and conditions are met. And we sort of make checks after the applications. There's also the possibility to use the digital portal if the company has e-herkenning. So you don't have to fill in paper forms and send them through the normal post, but you can use the digital portal, which is accessible through the IND website. And if the high-skilled migrant has family members, wife, partner, children, minor children, then the recognized sponsor can also submit the application for the residence permit for these family members. Big companies who have the status of recognized sponsor also can get an account manager. But I'm not sure if in this case there will be big companies applying. because most of the really big companies in the Netherlands have already received this recognized sponsorship. But those big companies, often the international companies, of course, also, they have an individual account manager. Apart from the benefits, of course, there are, or because of those benefits, there are legal obligations for the recognized sponsor, because the relationship between the IND and the recognized sponsor is a relationship based on trust. As Helene already mentioned, we are checking whether the organization is a reliable partner. Because the recognized sponsor is the one who checks whether the employee meets all requirements as included in the legislation and regulations. So in order to be able to check afterwards if all requirements are met, the recognized sponsor has to keep records, both of the company itself, but also of the highly skilled migrant. Secondly, the recognized sponsor has to provide information to the IND concerning the situation of the high skilled migrant. For example, when the high skilled migrant is quitting his job, going to another employer, for example, or when the income requirements are not met anymore, then the recognized sponsor has to inform the IND that these changes have happened in the situation. But also, if the company itself, for example, changes its name or changes its address, they have to proactively inform the IND within 4 weeks. And that is very important. That's a very important responsibility of the recognized sponsor. And thirdly, the recognized sponsor has a duty of care, which means that they have to recruit and select employees carefully. And they also have the responsibility of informing the high skilled migrant about admission and residence conditions. Those conditions are on the IND website, so it is easy for the recognized sponsor to keep themselves informed about admission and residence conditions. Yes? Then something about the costs and the time frame. The application to become a recognized sponsor costs a little bit more than the application for the residence permit of a high skilled migrant. As you can see, we make a difference between small businesses up to 50 employees and businesses with more than 50 employees. We try to take a decision within 90 days, but indeed after the advice of the RVO is needed, it may take 6 months, because we depend on the time that the RVO needs to decide upon the solvency and the continuity of the company. The status of recognized sponsor is for an indefinite period, so that is not something that has to be renewed all the time. For example, in the UK, the duration of the status has to be renewed every year again, but in the Netherlands, it is for an indefinite period. The application for the residence permit to high skilled migrant is 290 euros, and we take a decision within 2 weeks. The residence permit itself is as long as the working contract is valid. Yeah, so the IND team businesses is the IND department that is actually supporting the recognized sponsors in several ways. We are responsible for the processing of the application, so we are the ones who decide whether the recognized sponsorship is given. but we are also their business partner and point of contact. So questions can be sent to us. We will publish a newsletter in order to inform the recognized sponsors. We give workshops and information meetings for recognized sponsors for more in-depth information and legislation. But we are also responsible for law enforcement. So we are the team that are also checking whether the recognized sponsors keep the legal obligations that they have, and that they have no, you know, for example, they fulfill those legal obligations. We have some operational relationships with the RVO, has been mentioned before. The RVO advises the IND concerning the continuity and the solvability of the company, solvency. We also work closely together with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because after a residence permit is granted, the Dutch embassy issues the MVV, the single entry visa for the highly skilled migrant to travel into the Netherlands. The inspection of the Ministry SZW is a cooperative partner of the IND concerning the inspection and law enforcement. We also have cooperation with the NAFIC, but that the NAFIC aims specifically at students and scientific researchers. So for the high-skilled migrants, a scientific researcher can be a high-skilled migrant, so we also cooperate with the NAFIC and recognize sponsors who hire scientific researchers. Well, some information about contacting the IND. We have a special telephone number for the companies if they have any questions about recognized sponsorship, and a different telephone number for individuals, but they can use the same form on the IND website if they want to if they have a question by email. And of course, the IND website itself is full of information about procedures and conditions, and essential information, of course, about the coronavirus and how it can affect the application or stay. So that's it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Marieke. I think you gave a very clear presentation, and you explained very well the way the IND works, the kind of relationship you have with some of the other key stakeholders in the field, including RVO, the embassies, and of course the various legal obligations have that companies that are interested in becoming recognized as a sponsor. I think we are almost reaching the end of our webinar. So I think I want to give the floor to Maya for some closing remarks.
Sure. Well, firstly, thanks very much to Helena and Marieke for joining us. And thank you very much, Mirta and Gunnar, on your side for leading this webinar. I think it was very interesting, fantastic to have some technical knowledge to balance out the more thematic information that we received in our first webinar some weeks ago. We did learn that annually 18 million young graduates are ready to enter the workforce in Africa, which is a huge amount. And 75% of those who do secure work do so on an irregular or not regular employment contract. So there really is a lot of talent there that is untapped. And you've seen the statistic from Marieke's pie graph that there is 94% approval rate of applications. So there's a lot of potential for the talent in Africa. There's definitely a supply. Audelia quite frequently remarked that there's more Harvard graduates in Nigeria than there are in Benelux plus Italy combined. So we do hope to see the Dutch employers capitalize on this. And as our panelists have said, that now is an ideal time to prepare for that recruitment, to use this time to secure that registered sponsorships permit, to get to know more about the talent in Nigeria and in Senegal, and engage with us to learn how best we can ensure that the talent in Africa best suits your labor shortages in the Netherlands. So now is the time. We can ensure matches so that as soon as people can travel, that it's a very smooth process. So we are looking forward to hearing from you. And once again, thanks very much to our panelists. And Mirta and I remain available, of course, by email and by phone for any remaining questions that the audience may have.
Yes, well, thank you so much, Maya, for the inspiring words. I could not have said it myself better. So I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. I want to thank our guest speakers, Elaine and Mariken, for joining our webinar and for their very valuable contribution to this webinar. And I would like to remind everyone that this is a series of webinars on labor mobility. So please make sure, if you are still interested in finding out new information on match projects and some of the other initiatives that we are currently planning, please make sure to tune in again. More details will be published on the NABC IOM the Netherlands website, as well as the Match LinkedIn page, which is also something to check out. So yes, if you have any other questions, feel free to contact me on this email address you're currently seeing, as well as Maya, and we are very much looking forward to get in contact with you to really continue the discussion and hear what your needs are, and how we can, of course, assist you in the best way. And of course, if you have any other specific questions regarding this topic on the legal pathways, we are very much keen to hear that as well. So that's it for today. Thank you so much, and looking forward to seeing you maybe in the near future.